California, home to millions and internationally famous for its spectacular scenery, thriving communities, and lush farmlands. California's destinations are linked together via a vast network of state highways, a highway system that's maintained in part by private citizens. Few people realize that more than half of state highway roadsides are adopted. But the fact is, thousands of proud citizens just like yourselves pick up litter, remove graffiti, provide vegetation control, and even plant trees, shrubs, and wildflowers on California's roadsides each year. People join the Adopt a Highway program because it provides a great opportunity to improve the beauty of California. Participants also save millions of tax dollars, earn recognition, and have fun. Now that you've joined, you're probably anxious to get started. But before you begin, you need to know that working on a roadside involves some risk. Fortunately, your exposure to those risks can be effectively minimized or eliminated altogether by carefully observing Adopt a Highway safety procedures. If you're watching this video for the first time, you need to know that it consists of two parts. The first part, Advanced Preparation, focuses on the special responsibilities of group leaders and need not be viewed by everyone. The second part, called Let's Get to Work, must be viewed by all Adopt a Highway participants. Most of the safety procedures discussed in this video are required conditions of your Adopt a Highway contract with Caltrans. Because it's impossible for Caltrans to monitor groups each time they work, we're counting on participants to be aware of and adhere to these procedures. You may be surprised to know that tasks accomplished long before your first work event are the keys to producing a safe work experience. Let's talk about safety training first. Your group was required to identify a spokesperson on the Adopt a Highway permit application. Unless otherwise informed, Caltrans considers this person the group's safety leader. All safety leaders must receive a safety orientation from a Caltrans employee. This includes new safety leaders that are appointed during your adoption period. During the orientation, both parts of this Get Serious About Safety video will be viewed and discussed. Also, your group's contract with Caltrans, called an encroachment permit, will be explained in detail. Your encroachment permit is a legal document that gives you permission to be present on the state highway right-of-way. The permit tells you where you're allowed to work and lists the specific task that you may perform. You must carry a copy of your encroachment permit with you while at your adoption site. If you plan to park at the site, you'll also need to place a copy of your encroachment permit on the driver's side dashboard of each vehicle present. The Adopt a Highway Special Provisions pages of your permit will also be reviewed. The provisions list the terms and conditions of your adoption, including required safety procedures and instructions for reporting any hazardous materials found at your site. As part of the safety orientation, your group safety leader will be given a drive-by or walk-through review of your site. Elements unique to your adopted area, such as where to park, places to avoid, and where to place your filled bags will be identified. Once the orientation has been completed, hard hats, vests, safety glasses, gloves, and a copy of this video will be issued. Adopt a Highway bags and litter pickers will also be issued to those groups who need them. It's then the responsibility of the group safety leader to provide safety training to all members of the group. Group training must include a viewing of Part 2 of this video, and your group's encroachment permit and special provisions pages must be read and discussed in detail. On a side note, minors may participate in the Adopt a Highway program. It's required that all volunteers, including adult supervisors, attend a safety training session given by the group's safety leader before they're permitted to work on the right-of-way. Safety leaders must also give safety training to any new persons joining the group during the adoption period. And then, because there's so much to learn and remember, your group safety leader must repeat the safety training session for all volunteers at least once a year. Perhaps the best time to begin gathering your gear is during the initial safety training session. It's required that everyone wear hard hats, safety glasses, vests, and gloves when working on the roadside. Vests and gloves are available in several sizes, and the Adopt a Highway hard hats are adjustable. Your Caltrans representative will exchange or provide additional equipment to your group's safety leader at any time during your adoption period. Group members are required to wear long pants and substantial leather shoes or boots with ankle support while working on the roadside. In addition, it's strongly recommended that participants wear long-sleeve shirts for protection from insects, abrasive plants, and the sun. Caltrans will issue litter pickers and adopt a highway litter bags to your group, but unless special arrangements are made with Caltrans, your group is responsible for providing all other tools and supplies. Group leaders should develop a checklist of items to be taken along. You may want to include tools, bottles of water, a first aid kit, sunscreen, and insect repellent. Pack an air horn or a whistle for your lookout to use, and don't forget to take along copies of your encroachment permit. Cell phones can be great tools for adopt-a-highway groups and are permitted for emergency use or to call for a ride home once your work has been completed. Radios and other electronic devices are not allowed at the worksite because they'll prevent you from giving your full attention to the sights and sounds around you. Developing a work strategy well in advance of your work event is the best way to avoid confusion on the roadside. There are 5 things you need to consider when putting your strategy together. First, designate a safe place such as a parking lot to meet before your work event. Use this place to conduct a brief safety review and make last-minute preparations for work. Groups should never ever put on their safety gear or conduct a safety review at their adoption site. While at your site, take care to avoid any activity that will distract drivers. Never run or engage in horseplay. Instead, always work in an orderly manner. Many volunteers working close together will draw the attention of passing motorists, so larger groups should devise a plan to split the group up into smaller units of 3 or 4 people. Take care, though, if you're splitting up groups of minors. Each group must have an adult supervisor present. Your work strategy must enable volunteers to work facing oncoming traffic so that they'll be able to see approaching vehicles. We realize that there are circumstances when workers will need to face away from traffic in order to work certain portions of their site. On these occasions, your group must appoint someone to act as a lookout. Lookouts should not work. Instead, they should constantly watch the traffic and be ready to use a whistle or an air horn to alert others if danger approaches. Adopt-a-highway participants are forbidden to walk, park, or place field bags on or within 6 feet of any traffic lane. Therefore, crossing freeway on-ramps or off-ramps, bridges, or any narrow areas on your site is not permitted. If your site contains any such areas, then your work strategy must incorporate a way to avoid them. There are 2 reasons why the safest possible way to get to your site may be to walk to it. The first is that most drivers find it impossible to resist staring at cars parked along the roadside. Even one parked car will cause a distraction. The second is because it's always risky to accelerate into moving traffic from the shoulder area. If you can't walk to your adoption site, then the next safest transportation mode would be to use a drop-off and pickup arrangement. Vehicles can briefly park on the shoulder for this purpose. All persons exiting and entering a vehicle parked on the shoulder need to do so from the side opposite the traffic lanes. The driver must wait until the workers have moved well away from the vehicle before re-entering traffic. Your least safest method of transportation would be to park on site. If you find that you must do so, then please carpool and use as few vehicles as possible. Vehicles that remain parked for more than a few minutes on the right-of-way must park completely off of any paved or unpaved shoulder, at least 6 feet from the traveled way. Don't turn on your emergency flashers because the highway patrol could mistakenly think that you need assistance. Here are a few simple examples of transportation and work strategies that you might consider. Let's start with a simple adoption site that contains no restricted areas. The best way to work this area would be for the group to park off-site and then walk onto the highway near the end of the site. The group would then work toward the beginning of the site, facing oncoming traffic. Once there, the group would exit the highway and then return to their vehicles. If there is no safe walk-on access close by, then a single vehicle drop-off and pickup arrangement would be safest. Notice that the vehicle remains parked on the shoulder until the workers have moved well away from it. Larger groups can split up and use an efficient work strategy called leapfrogging. Here's how leapfrogging works. Vehicle 1 would park midway up the adoption site and drop off a group of volunteers. We'll call them Group 1. Group 1 would work toward the beginning of the site. At the same time, Vehicle 2 would drop off a second group of volunteers at the end of the site. Group 2 would work toward the parked vehicle at the midway point. Vehicle 2 would then exit the highway and circle around to park at the beginning of the site. Once the two groups reached the parked vehicles, they would load up and drive to their designated meeting place, or repeat the process on the opposite side of the highway. Leapfrogging works nicely on sites that are broken up by areas that are unsafe to cross, like bridges. In this example, Vehicle 1 would drop off Group 1 before the bridge. Notice that Group 1 is using a lookout to watch oncoming traffic while the rest of the group cleans the area in front of the vehicle. Once the group is a safe distance from the vehicle, the driver can cross the bridge and park. In the meantime, Vehicle 2 would drop off Group 2 at the end of the site. Vehicle 2 would then exit the highway and circle around to the beginning of the site, just as in the previous work strategy. Well, those examples were simple enough, but how would you safely work a site like this one? One way would be to divide the site into 3 work areas and use 3 work groups. To do this, Vehicle 1 would drop off Group 1 just before the exit ramp in the lower part of the site. Group 1 would work just like Group 1 in our bridge example, but this time, Vehicle 1 would circle around to park at the beginning of the site. Vehicle 2 would drive to the interchange area and remain parked while Group 2 cleaned that section. Vehicle 3 would drive to the end of the adopted section and drop off the third group. Group 3 would work toward the intersection while Vehicle 3 circled around to park just past the on-ramp area. We could go on with more examples, but you get the idea. The point we're trying to make is that with a little thought, you can develop a work plan that meets every safety requirement. When everyone in your group has been given safety training, has the proper clothing and equipment, and agreed upon a work strategy, you'll be ready to begin your adoption activities. Part 2 of this video, Let's Get to Work, will explain how to set up a safe and successful work event.